There's a room you'll never find on a map. No address, no velvet rope, no sign. And the strangest part? Some of the wealthiest people in the world have never been inside it. We are obsessed with the idea that money is the final unlock. That enough of it, enough zeros, enough square footage, enough labels sewn into the right places, eventually gets you everywhere. But that belief is exactly what keeps certain people out. Because the people who built these rooms, they stopped thinking about money a very long time ago. And they designed the entrance accordingly. This is not a video about wealth. It's about the thing wealth cannot purchase. And the 3 tests you never knew you were already failing.
Every society, in every era, has had 2 economies running simultaneously. One is visible, quantifiable. You can read it in Forbes. The other one has no ledger. What we tend to call the elite is not a tax bracket. It is a social ecosystem. And like any ecosystem, it has its own biology, its own rules of survival, its own signals of belonging, and its own immune system designed to reject foreign bodies. The mistake most people make is thinking that mimicking the surface is the same as entering the interior. It is not. A person can spend $2 million on a wardrobe and still feel the room shift when they walk in. Not because they are unwelcome, but because they are legible. And legibility in these spaces is a kind of poverty. Old money doesn't perform. It simply is. And that distinction between performance and existence is the fault line that separates the merely rich from the quietly powerful. The sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called it cultural capital, but that phrase is too clean for what it actually describes. What it actually describes is a kind of grammar. And grammar, as anyone who has ever moved to a foreign country knows, cannot be bought. It can only be absorbed over years, over generations, over thousands of invisible corrections. So what are the tests? How does this selection actually happen? Let's go inside. The first test has nothing to do with what you own. It has everything to do with why you want it. There is a well-documented psychological phenomenon studied extensively in consumer behavior research. The visible pursuit of status is itself a low-status signal. The moment you announce desire, through logos, through name-dropping, through the urgency of acquisition, you reveal something. You reveal that you are still in the phase of wanting to be seen. And people who have been inside the room for generations, they stopped wanting to be seen before you were born. Think about how new money moves through the world. It arrives loudly. It announces itself. The car, the bag, the restaurant chosen for its difficulty to get into. Now think about how old money moves. It takes the same car it's driven for 11 years. It eats at the restaurant that closed to the public in 1987. It doesn't need the room to know it's arrived, because it never felt like it left. This is the first test, the test of desire. They are watching, not what you have, but what you reach for. And more importantly, whether you reach at all. There is a kind of person who can walk past the most beautiful thing in the room without acknowledging it. Not out of indifference, out of sovereignty. When you covet openly, you hand power to whatever you covet. The truly powerful never hand power to anything. They wait. They assess. They occasionally acquire, quietly, without announcement, as if picking up something they'd simply set down earlier. The consumer chases the object. The owner forgets he has it. If you are still excited about what you purchased last month, you have not yet passed the first test. The second test is more subtle and far more ruthless. It is the test of language. Not vocabulary, language. The full ecosystem of how a person communicates. Every social class has a dialect. Not accent, dialect. The things people choose to talk about. The things they choose not to. The references they make. The way they handle silence. Psychological research on social class and communication, particularly work coming out of UC Berkeley, has consistently shown that upper-class individuals are more likely to exhibit what researchers call disengagement behaviors in conversation. Less eye contact, more stillness, fewer words. Not from rudeness, from security. The person who does not need to convince you of anything doesn't. Watch someone new to power in a room of established power. They over-explain. They laugh slightly too early. They fill silence with noise because silence feels like judgment. And in these rooms, it is. There is a phrase that circulates in certain old European family offices. Never explain, never complain. It sounds like arrogance. It is actually something else. It is the complete absence of the need for external validation. The person who over-explains is revealing that they are not yet sure they belong. Certainty doesn't argue. It simply occupies the space. The second test is not what you say. It is whether you feel compelled to say it at all.
We are halfway through, and I want you to sit with something uncomfortable for a moment. Every test I've described so far, you cannot prepare for it. That's the architecture. The moment you study for the test, you've already revealed that you needed to. The rules exist not to be learned, but to be already known. That is what makes them invisible walls rather than visible gates. But there is a third test, and this one is different, because this one you can actually fail in real time.
The third test is the test of reaction. Specifically, how you respond when things go wrong. There is a moment that happens in every high-stakes social environment. Something goes unexpectedly. A reservation falls through. A deal collapses. Someone is insulted subtly in public. And in that moment, every room holds its breath. Not because the situation is catastrophic, but because it is watching. Psychologists call this emotional regulation under status pressure. In plain language, how do you behave when your position feels threatened? New money tends to escalate. It reaches for the card, the name, the threat. Do you know who I am? Old power does the opposite. It goes quieter. It becomes more still. Not as suppression, but as confidence in the outcome. Because here is the thing about people who have been embedded in power for generations. They don't need to fight for the room. They know the room will be handled. They've watched that happen their entire lives. Watched their parents make a single phone call and have situations simply resolve. That ease, that muscular, practiced ease with which the powerful encounter friction cannot be learned over a weekend. It is perhaps the most honest test of all, because it bypasses every studied behavior. When the pressure comes, and it always comes, who are you, really? Under pressure, the rehearsed self collapses. What remains is
The third test is the test of reaction. Specifically, how you respond when things go wrong. There is a moment that happens in every high-stakes social environment. Something goes unexpectedly. A reservation falls through, a deal collapses, someone is insulted, subtly, in public. And in that moment, every room holds its breath, not because the situation is catastrophic, but because it is watching. Psychologists call this emotional regulation under status pressure. In plain language, how do you behave when your position feels threatened? New money tends to escalate. It reaches for the card, the name, the threat. Do you know who I am? Old power does the opposite. It goes quieter. It becomes more still. Not as suppression, but as confidence in the outcome. Because here is the thing about people who have been embedded in power for generations. They don't need to fight for the room. They know the room will be handled. They've watched that happen their entire lives. Watched their parents make a single phone call and have situations simply resolve. That ease, that muscular, practiced ease with which the powerful encounter friction cannot be learned over a weekend. It is perhaps the most honest test of all, Because it bypasses every studied behavior. When the pressure comes, and it always comes, who are you, really? Under pressure, the rehearsed self collapses. What remains is your actual formation. The new rich bring their net worth to the crisis. The established powerful bring their nervous system. And the nervous system always wins.
So where does this leave us? I want to be honest with you about something. This video is not a self-improvement guide. It is not going to tell you how to pass these tests. Because the deeper truth, the thing this whole architecture is built on, is that the tests are not designed to be passed. They are designed to select. What I'm describing is not a meritocracy of character. It is a system of inherited fluency. And like all inherited things, it contains both beauty and violence. The beauty is real. There is something genuinely compelling about people who have shed the need for approval, who move through the world without performing, who hold power with a certain quietness that registers as gravity. The violence is also real, because this system does not ask, are you worthy? It asks, were you formed correctly? And formation is not something you choose. The old families understood something that our modern obsession with self-made success refuses to accept, that the deepest advantages are the ones you never had to pursue. That the room you were born inside does not look like a room. It looks like the world. You don't feel privileged when privilege is your baseline. You simply feel normal. And that normality is the thing money cannot manufacture. This is why the newly wealthy so often feel, despite everything, like guests. Not because they are unwelcome, but because they can still see the door they came through. And the truly native, they have never seen a door.
There is a lesson here, but it is not the one you expected. It is this. The version of power worth having, the kind that is genuinely free, is not about access. It is about the complete and total disappearance of the need for it. That is the room no one can close to you, because you built it inside yourself. They're not protecting wealth anymore. They're protecting the environment around it. And the environment was never for sale.